Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Nick, your host and founder of the Junior Golf Hub. We're excited to bring to you this week putting and putting under pressure, making more putts when it really counts. So look forward to showing you guys some videos and helping you make more putts out there. This week, as always, have Tyler Campbell, Director of Performance here at the Golf Performance Center as a co-host. Also Dennis Hillman. He's going to be showing some exercises, some drills, feedback tools to make you or help you become a better putter. Also, we're going to bring on later on Dr. Josh Brand. So we're really excited about having these guys helping you be the better putter that you want to be and making more putts. So, as always, want to keep it interactive, making sure you're sending your questions, comments, concerns to 5elementsatthegolfperformancecenter.com or our YouTube chat channel. Please send in your comments. Again, we want to help you become your best self on the golf course, in the classroom, and in life through this series. This week's pop quiz, we're going to give away a head cover, going to be drawn out of the hat. The question is, which of the 5 principles of putting is the most important? You can see that on your screen. Again, I'm going to read that again. Which of the 5 principles of putting is the most important? And you see there's more than 5 answers there, so beware, maybe a trick question. So anyway, again, so tune in. Let's see if we can help you make some more putts out there. But before we get into this episode, Tyler, let's talk about last week and recap.
Guys, first of all, I want to congratulate all of you. I was not here last week, but I was tuning into the show.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed watching it as I was getting a week away. But
welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
You were on the beach in Delaware,
yeah,
I think.
I was enjoying the sunshine down at the Delaware beaches, so it was great. But for anybody who missed any previous episodes, they're available on juniorgolfhub.com/the5elements or on Golf Performance Center's YouTube page. Last week we covered the current landscape of college golf. Obviously with the current pandemic and the situation that we're in right now, recruiting is rather turbulent. So many of you had a lot of good questions with regards to the college golf recruiting process. So a few things just to recap. We want to continue to be proactive, developing those relationships with college coaches. Stay ahead of the game. Don't sit back and relax and wait for this whole thing to kind of clear the air. Make sure you're staying active with your recruiting process. And in order to do that, we want to be using that Junior Golf Hub college checklist. All right, so that's on your Junior Golf Hub profile. You're able to access that, and that'll really give you a guideline as to what you should be working on when. And then last but not least, we can't reiterate enough how important it is to stay patient throughout this process. Obviously, it's one that none of us have gone through, college coaches included. So, stay active, continue to work on what you should be working on, but stay patient at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler, for that recap. And again, I can't say enough, and as Tyler just said, patience, patience, patience. It is a tough thing out there right now for parents and players, trying to get to that next level. So just be patient. With that being said, it can also be said for putting as well. This week we're talking about making more putts under pressure. And Dennis, I know you've got some film from yesterday with one of your players and some of the 5 principles of putting.
Yeah, so as you can see on the slide here, we talked about this in a previous episode. What we look at is our 5 principles of putting. So green reading, speed control, centerness of contact, path and face control, and posture. So quite a few variables in putting, obviously, so those are some key principles. So we have different forms of practice that we'll take our juniors through to work on building those specific skills and how they can help them be more consistent on the putting green.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing, and it's one of those things too that you're not talking about one size fits all here. I mean, I don't see that says technique up there necessarily. It's just here's some things that you need to know are common denominators of being a great putter.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are some key concepts and just areas that you want to focus on and build a system around it and get better understanding of kind of what works for you. We know that the most important thing is to have consistency. You may do something that is fundamentally flawed, according to an analysis by a certain technology, but if you can be consistent, you can make putts.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's welcome in Dr. Josh Brandt. Dr. Brandt, welcome to the show again. It's always great to have you.
Love to be here.
Good. We'll be talking about some of the things we did experience yesterday with one of the players and Dennis as well. So love to hear your insight, and obviously I'm sure everyone at home will hear your insight as well. So
great. Looking forward to it.
So Dennis, why don't we lead off with green reading? I know it's one of the things that we talk a lot about understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish here, and that's get the ball in a hole, but you've got to know the line. So
yeah, I mean, obviously speed and line are important, but if you can't read the green properly, even a perfect putting stroke and hitting it where you're aiming with good speed, it's not going to work out if you don't have a proper system and a good analysis of how the slope is, uphill, downhill, and how many degrees right to left or left to right. So we have a good video here with one of our collegiate players, Jay Milch, and we're just going to take it through a simple exercise you can do to specifically analyze how well you're reading the green and how quickly you can get the right read on a putt. So,
all right, let's show the video. I'm out here at GPC National with Dr. Josh Brandt and Dennis Hillman. We're talking about making putts under pressure. I want to turn it over to Dr. Josh Brandt, talking about how we're going to make putts under pressure. Doc, can you go ahead and talk to us about what's going to happen out here today?
Yeah, thanks, Roger. So one of the most important things, we've talked about this a bunch of times already, right? So the foundation of confidence is preparation. And there's no better place to practice preparing for meaningful putts than on the green. And we're going to talk to Dennis Hillman, Director of Instruction here at GPC. He's going to share some of the 5 key components of putting that, when you practice, you'll be able to make more putts as a result.
hey guys, how you doing? So we're gonna talk about the first principle of putting, which is green reading, right? That's the first thing you want to be able to do proficiently to be able to roll the ball on line with a good speed. We're here with one of our collegiate players here at the Golf Performance Center, Jay Milch. And we're going to show you a little bit a drill here that you can do to improve your green reading skills. First, I'll say that it's really important to make sure green reading starts about 100 yards or even 150 yards away from the green, just observing your surroundings, the general slope of the land. So it's not just when you get to your putt. Obviously, observing from different sides of the hole is important, using your eyes, but also using your feet. We know there are a lot of green reading systems out there like AimPoint. Some people use apps. You can use a level on your phone to understand percentages of slope and then feel it in your feet. So all those are good things. Whatever your system is, just make sure you're practicing it consistently. Just going to show you one drill that you can do here to really understand how you're reading greens and how quickly you can get the right read on any particular putt. So Jay is going to hit a putt here. We have a gate drill set up. So basically a gate at the high point of the putt. This is what Jay has determined that he believes the high point that the putt will break off from is. Okay, so he missed the gate high, he also missed the putt high. So we're going to wait till he gets one, through the gate and then analyze the results of the putt. Okay, so that right there is some information. He actually just missed the low tee on the low side, and he actually was able to make the putt in the hole. As good as it was that he made the putt, perhaps the gate is a little bit too high. So ideally you want to just find that gate in the right spot as quickly as possible and then move on to another putt. See how long it takes you to get the correct read.
All right, well, Dennis, so we just saw that, everyone at home, hopefully you saw that video there with Dennis and Jay, and obviously Dr. Brandt talking about, reading the greens. And, Dennis, I know you have some tools there to help you read the green, help the players read the greens a little bit better. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, outside of that, that's a really good one. There's some feedback with the gate. You can also use a level, so you can use a level on your phone or a separate, something, an actual level that you go purchase. And go out to the putting green and put that level down, see what the degrees is or percentage of slope, and start to feel it in your feet. That's part of the AimPoint system. Whether you use the whole system or not, just going out and starting to understand how well you can see and feel slope according to the science and the measurement of a level is really good practice. We're fortunate here in our putting studio, in the Zen putting studio, we're actually sitting here on our platform that we can actually adjust the slope as much as 8 degrees right to left, left to right, and actually there's 2 different plates, so we can have a double breaker here. So we'll come in and measure our students on SAM Putt Lab and start to understand their tendencies based on different degrees of slope.
Yeah, and that's really important to understand that. So if you start with knowing what it is, and then when you transition or go out and transfer those skills out onto the golf course, it really helps quite a bit. So I know not everybody has a Zen Putt Lab studio at home, but you can do other things to measure that and kind of get a better understanding of that as well, right?
Yeah, I think just using that level outside, and really, you hear Ian Poulter, who's a great putter, he actually puts a tremendous amount of time and energy into just practicing his green reading. So I think it definitely has its place in a practice plan every week, putting the right kind of time into it.
Yeah, and that brings us to the mental side of this. There's a mental component to this as well, and which is pretty much everything is, right?
For sure.
So talk a little bit about what you think, from a green reading perspective, would be helpful to the players.
So what I really like about what Dennis said is start to read the green 100, 150 yards out, right? We really want to take advantage of the genius of our brain's ability to perceive information. And the more we can take advantage of that, obviously the more information we can gather, the better decisions we can make. Interestingly, when we're feeling pressure, when we're under stress, our brain actually becomes less efficient at perceiving what's actually happening, right? We go into a bit of a kind of really a survival or a threat mode, right? So our ability to think starts to diminish, our ability to make decisions starts to diminish, and we become kind of quick and impulsive, right? So when we're looking at developing a skill of green reading, we really want to make sure we're in the right state of mind for that, right? So another interesting point, I know we were talking about before, also something else that happens is your vision actually narrows. Right? So if you're feeling particularly stressed, you're feeling a particularly pressured putt, it's really important, one, to recognize that. Also another consequence of feeling stressed is the fact that we're not always that self-aware. So if there is that pressure, if it seems like that's happening, I would really recommend kind of stepping back, taking a settling breath, doing something to get yourself out of that situation so that you can really take advantage of the genius of your brain and its ability to kind of read greens naturally.
Yeah, it's kind of like as I'm sitting here that you guys are blanking out a little bit to me on my periphery as I'm nervous a little bit about this show, right? So we kind of feel that.
It's a great example, and it's pretty cool that you're aware of it, right?
Yeah.
That skill of self-awareness to even know that happens is important. So yeah, great example.
Yeah, and don't forget, that green reading is one of our 5 principles, so hopefully you guys are keeping along or tracking along here on this as well. So we just gave you one of the answers. But with that being said, let's go to the next thing that you want to talk about, and I know posture is an important part of the process here and getting set up the same way each time, and so why don't we go through that as well, and I think you have a video for this as well?
Yeah, we have again, Jay Milch is on this video, so we're just going to take him through a simple posture drill to get him in a proper posture and ideally be able to rotate around his spine, and from there, if you can just do those things properly, the arms and putter, usually it'll fall into place and you'll tend to find good path and face. So let's take a look at that video.
Hey, Dr. Brandt, so we were just watching Dennis do that drill on the gate drill there, and there were some things that you saw and you want to give some feedback, so that how do we do that more consistently? So would you, go ahead and talk to Dennis about what happens there and how you're going to make that consistent?
Yeah, so one of the things that we were talking about earlier was the importance of automatic behavior, right? The more well-practiced the behavior actually is, the less susceptible it is to stress. So when we were watching Dennis giving instruction earlier, we were looking at really the ability to read a green, but there's so many other factors that we can practice, that we can develop, so our putting stroke becomes automatic. When our putting stroke becomes automatic, it becomes less susceptible to stress. So Dennis, what are some of those other factors that you think are important to setting up a consistent putting stroke other than green reading?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, green reading is a start, but to get the ball on line with proper speed, we know path and face control are really important, and ultimately the path and the face of the putter is going to move based on how you move your body. So we know we want to start with a proper setup and proper posture and learn how to rotate around your spine so that there are fewer moving parts. It's a much more repeatable way to deliver that putter. So again, Jay Milch is here with us. He's going to show us the posture drill that he's done thousands of times. If you can just show us a posture drill here, Jay. Okay, so Jay has set himself up in proper joint alignment so that he can rotate simply around his spine. Now go ahead and show me, put that club across your shoulders and show me a torso rotation, just back and forth. So he's just rehearsing the motion of rotating around his spine. That's your energy source right there, your big muscles rotating around your spine, and the arms and the putter will move accordingly. So if you can get those basic fundamentals of posture and rotation correct, a lot of times path and face will just fall into place, and you'll find yourself hitting a lot more consistent putts on line with good speed.
All right, so another good video there, Dennis, in explaining how important that lead factor of getting the posture and setup down so you can control path and face, really important. But so what are some other feedback mechanisms or tools that you have up on your tool belt, if you will, to explain how to do these things?
Yeah, you know, we've got all kinds of ones here. We've got K-Vest that can give feedback on posture. Tyler will talk about posture here in a little bit. You know, we do use our Sand Putt Lab to understand, you know, how those two correlate, how posture, rotation do affect path and face. We have some simpler ones I think that are more affordable and more common out there. Blast Motion's a really good one that we can use that actually does give the metrics of path, face, tempo, length of stroke. And then just some simple training aids like eyeline mirrors and things like that can be really useful as well.
Yeah, and again, we're going to go back to Dr. Brandt here and talking about the importance of the awareness of where you are, body awareness, mental awareness of setting up properly, because we know that that's a challenge sometimes when, you know, you're out there again under pressure and need to make this birdie putt to maybe, you know, force a playoff or to win the tournament, and then, you know, having that real self-awareness would be key.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize something that I spoke about on the video too. Automaticity, right? The more we can ingrain a behavior, the less susceptible it will be to stress. So the importance of posture, the importance of setup, the reason we want to get really, we actually, there's another variable that we'll talk about later, target focus, but we want our putting stroke to be as technically sound as we possibly can make it. And we want it to be repetitive so that when we get up to a pressure putt, we are in the proper mechanical state, right? We know how to strike a putt, we know where it's going, and the more we can practice that, again, the less susceptible we'll be to pressure, and more likely we're going to make the putt.
Yeah, and part of that practice too is practicing and putting yourself in a situation of that pressure, right? So that you're going through that process and not just sitting there. And we talk about the repetitive nature of just beating balls and beating putts, if you will. Right. And you don't really want to do that because that's not going to help you make putts under pressure necessarily. There might be a place and time for that, but I think it's really important too to understand that, you know, like Phil Mickelson used to do the Star Duel. He had to hit 100 putts in a row, which then would build that pressure. Right. He couldn't leave the putting green until that was done, you know, after a round or maybe in a practice session.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be, you know, pressure of, you know, I need to make this in order to make Q school, right? It could be boredom, right? Yeah. The reason that drill you just mentioned with Phil is so effective is because at the end of it, you're physically tired, you're mentally tired, and can you in that moment actually find a way to still stay focused and make a good target focused putt? Yeah,
that's great. So again, making sure you're out there challenging yourself enough to help you, you know, get to that next level and making more putts again under pressure. That's important. Which now leads us to, okay, we got green reading, which is obviously one of the 5 principles. You've got posture, which is one of the 5 principles. Now, again, another one of the principles here is speed control, and those are always, you know, linked. So why don't you talk a little bit about that speed control?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to say speed is king. Obviously, these are all very important and relevant, but if you can get good speed, you know, over time, that's where you're really probably going to avoid those 3 putts. I generally will blame 3 putts on the first putt, just not having good speed and leaving the ball close to the hole. We're going to show you a simple video here again with our collegiate player Jay Milch, and it's just a simple exercise to really develop feel in a really really simple way that you can do anywhere. All right, guys, now we're going to focus on the all-important principle of speed control. So we know some of the important elements within that are centerness of contact is so important, right? So becoming more aware of that, having a feedback mechanism for that, length of stroke and tempo. There are different things like blast motion that can give you feedback on the actual length and tempo of your stroke and how that influences your speed control when you putt. What we're going to do here is a simple drill without any of those feedback tools or technologies. We're just going to do a simple drill where Jay is going to close his eyes and putt, and then he's going to explain to me where he feels like the ball ended up before he actually looks at the result. So Jay, go ahead and hit one with your eyes closed. Short? Okay. All right, so yeah, it was tracking a little bit short. Go ahead and hit one more for us. See if you can tell me how short or long you feel like it is.
Probably like a foot past.
Oof, about 2 inches past. So it's a great way to really just develop your feel, right? The more accurate you can really feel where the ball ends up, you'll find that the ball ends up closer and closer to the hole, and eventually, you know, they probably start dropping in. So a great way to develop your feel and speed control there.
I mean, what a great drill that is, going out there, making some putts with your eyes closed. Love that drill.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to do with that is I'm walking around my house with my eyes closed, just learning and kind of leaning and where things are around my house. And it kind of gives me my pace of where my stroke is or where my distance is. So it kind of gives me a sense of that awareness is. So, spatial awareness for me. But, so Dennis, let's talk about, those feedback tools and mechanisms that you have that are, linked to, speed control or better speed control.
Yeah, so obviously one of the important principles is centeredness of contact. So a really good drill, and that'll influence speed control, right? How well you can hit the ball consistently in the same place, ideally in the center, but if it's not, just in the same place. So a gate drill, which is a different kind of gate drill, where you put a couple tees just outside the toe and the heel of the putter at the ball and see if you can deliver the sweet spot to the ball. So those tees will be the feedback on if you're hitting it on the heel or the toe of the putter. Again, blast motion's really good because that'll give you length of stroke and tempo. So those are really going to relate directly to how well you can control speed. You can use, there are different mats like a Visio mat, which can actually show you the length of your stroke back and forth, and you can get a good visual on that. So that's another good one.
Yeah, and so again, making it consistent of the contact on the putter, wherever that is going to be important to the speed control, right? So whether it's a feedback tool like an arc or maybe a gate drill with tees that you have to swing the putter through will help as well, just for that consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some consistency and centeredness is one of those 5 principles, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Doc, when it comes to that as well, so speed control, awareness, again, we're going to talk about this, probably beat this dead horse, but preparedness and awareness to that is what do you think?
Yeah, so now we'll get to this, I think, next, right, which is this target connection. I think we saw Jay get better at this, and with his eyes closed, he really was connected to target, which we'll get to in a second, which I'm very biased and think that's the most important thing. But we also saw there are clearly, when it comes to pressure putts, right, when we're feeling stress, when we're feeling anxiety, right, there are physiological consequences, right? We don't think as well. We're more impulsive. Our vision narrows. Well, another thing that often shows up is tension, right? If you have tension in your golf swing, you do not have feel, right? Tension will dampen feel. So the more we can check in with ourselves, the more we can grow our awareness of our tension in our body, right, and be able to respond to that, I think, in a meaningful way. Obviously, the opposite of tension is to relax. So we need to develop the ability to relax our body so that we can allow this feel, so we can allow our ability to connect to a target when we're under pressure.
Yeah, I think that's great. And actually, as you were just talking about that, it reminded me of an interview I heard with Jerry Rice talking about him running routes and when he first came into the league, if you will, and how he struggled with catching the ball. He was a great receiver in college. He was not well known at the time, but he was a great receiver, but he struggled with catching the ball at the next level because he was so focused on his steps and not in running the route and not actually the target of catching the ball. Yeah, right. He was so focused on everything else. And I think that's relatable too. Maybe you're an athlete out there playing other sports. All of those things can relate to what you're doing when it comes to putting and hitting shots. So think about those experiences that you have that you can draw upon that's going to help you be a better putter. And I think that's really important out there. And I think as Jerry Rice did, as you did with putting, his eyes closed, he would run routes and time and get, have a timer on how he made the steps and make the cuts. Yeah. And then obviously working with the quarterbacks on the timing. And then all he did was then become focused on catching the football. If it was in the vicinity, he was going to make the catch because he wasn't worried about everything else. And I think you call that automaticity.
Yeah,
right? So
that's right, automaticity. The more we can make that technical side of our game automatic, right, the more we can focus on the target. And the less susceptible our, in this case, our putting stroke will be to stress, for sure.
Right, I think that's great stuff. And you mentioned that we're going to now focus on the target and where our focus should be is obviously getting the ball in the hole. And I think we got to talk about that next. So Dennis, as we run this next video, and I know that's something we talk about a lot, is getting the ball in the hole, least amount of strokes possible. Sure. And so our focus needs to be there.
Yeah, no question. That's the whole intent, and I think it sounds so obvious, but it's amazing how often that is completely lost. Whether it's on the practice range hitting drivers, or even just in putting, and you get so absorbed in technique, and you really have to, I think, combine both, where you're really working on technique and you're connected to the target at the same time. So when you're building that automaticity, it's as it relates to hitting the ball to the target.
Yeah, that's great. So why don't we roll the video here and see this. Okay, so we're here in our last segment. We're going to be talking more about the target awareness with Dr. Brandt and what we do. So Dr. Brandt, we just saw Dennis and witnessed Dennis go through the segment of kind of how to prepare to make the putts and do some drills. But now you're going to really talk about the ultimate is making the putt and target awareness. So you want to explain to the audience more about to be ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, you can have the best putting stroke of all time, right? It can be mechanically sound. You can make center face contact every single time. But if you're not connected to a target, that stroke is really meaningless. And sometimes, especially on big putts, we often get so lost in like the meaning of the situation that sometimes our technique actually suffers. So one really easy way for us to practice how to deal with this situation is to work on becoming more target focused. So what I'm going to have Jay do is I'm going to have him set up to the same putt that Dennis just had him do, but instead of actually focusing on the ball, what I'm going to have him do is actually focus simply on his target, right? So Jay, what I want you to do is set up like you would for a normal putt. Go through whatever routine, whatever technique that you have. But this time, all I want you to do is focus on my fingernail. I actually don't want you to look at the putt, right? When you're putting, look at the ball when you're putting. I want you to just look at my fingernail. So stay with my fingernail. Okay, so probably the most important thing now, whether it goes in or not is actually irrelevant. The goal of this exercise is to really be able to ask Jay, were you connected to your target or were you worried about something else?
I was connected to my target.
You were connected to your target, okay? So there was no other thought going in your mind at all, right? So that's a great way to practice. If in fact there was nothing going on in his mind, he was completely connected to his target and there wasn't any other interference going on in his head. Again, a great way to practice dealing with target focus versus technical interference. Got them. Use them.
All right, so that was a great video out there talking about getting connected to your target and why that is so important. And again, I know we talk a lot about this and how when the student's ready, the coach appears, right? And it's kind of that same scenario here. When you start focusing on the target, the mechanics appear. The centers of contact, the path clears up, things that you tend to think about a lot, from a technique standpoint. Maybe it kind of takes a back seat to really the target focus.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it on the show before, right? Golf is one of the few sports where you don't focus on your target when you're performing, that behavioral action. And as Dennis said too, it needs to be, right? We often forget because we get so focused on technique that we forget actually where we're hitting the ball. But again, this is so important to reiterate, the more you focus on target, actually proper mechanics often will show up.
Yeah, I like that. So Dennis, some of the things that we just talked about and reviewed, so let's do one more recap of those 5 principles of putting and why they're important, and I think there's probably maybe one other that Dr. Brandt would like to throw in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have green reading, speed control, centerness of contact, path and face control, and now I'm blanking out on the last one. Here we go, posture. Well, that's not important, is it, Tyler?
Tyler's going to talk more about that posture and how important it is, and we'll see, right?
That's right.
So that's great. So again, get ready for that pop quiz. You heard the question early on. We just gave you some really key hints there, if not the answers. And Dr. Brandt, you talked about the connecting to the target as well as one of those principles.
Yeah, again, I'm biased, but I think everything is important. But if you're not connected to the target, if you don't have all those 5 principles and your target disconnected, you're not going to make the putt, right? Target connection and all the other things is so critical. You need to be target connected.
Yeah, so if you potentially maybe circled all of those and that connection, you may get the right answer there.
That's right.
So maybe a small hint there. All right, Andrew, I think we're ready for some questions, and maybe we have some answers for them.
Yeah, our first question is, can I be a good putter if I don't hit the center of the club face consistently?
Really good question, important question. So, again, I think I said it earlier, you don't have to have the fundamentally most perfect stroke. Really, high levels of consistency really correlate to good putting more than anything. So if you consistently hit it a little on the toe or a little on the heel, and you can repeat kind of all the other aspects of it, you can actually do pretty well.
How do I know if I have a properly fit putter?
Yeah, so good question and really important one. I like to say that we actually have an Adele putter fitting system here, and just in the little cart there are actually 300 million combinations of putters that we can make. So to think that you're going to go randomly pick a putter off the shelf and that it's going to fit you perfectly is pretty slim, those chances. So definitely go get professionally fit for a putter. There's a lot of different variables that are important, from the length of it, the weight of it, even the flex of the shaft, believe it or not. So there's a lot of variables that go into it.
The next question is, I have too many 3-putts during my rounds. What do I do?
Stop 3-putting. Well, Dennis, that's a good question. Maybe for you. Also, Dr. Brandt, maybe there's some insight there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of these principles we talked about today are relevant. I think, again, I said it before, I think the first putt is usually what I would blame. So green reading and speed control would be really important. Obviously, target connection would be a big part of it.
Yeah, I've done looking at the whole drill. I've practiced it in tournament play myself. I've had people I've coached do it as well in tournament play. The more you can get connected to the target, right, the more likely your speed is going to be accurate, right? Yeah. It's actually a pretty clear correlation. If you're not thinking about the target, right, how can you make a stroke that's long enough or short enough to be able to make it where you need to go? So, but when you're connected to the target, you'll definitely won't 3-putt as much.
And our last question is, what's more important, speed or line?
Great question.
It is a great question. And they're just both super important. That's hard to say. I guess I would say slightly, the farther you get from the hole, maybe a little bit more speed, but you're just getting the combination is really what you need. So.
Well, speed can help determine the line too. So
yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things you think about. So whether it's hitting it slower or faster, it helps determine the line that you're trying to take.
For sure, yeah. Your intent when you're reading a green, really the first thing would be to determine your intended speed and then get your line from that. So yeah, they really correlate. Yeah.
That's all the questions we have for today.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew, and another great job by you on those questions. And thank you guys for actually sending in those questions for us to answer, and hopefully that's helped you as well. Let's talk a little bit about next week. Next week we're going to be hitting shots under pressure, kind of like we did was talking about with putting here. Can you hit those shots when you need to hit those shots down the stretch, which comes back to ball flight control. Controlling your golf ball is the ultimate in this game, and that's how you're going to win, I think. So, again, as always, thank you to the sponsors, Junior Golf Hub and Ethan Allen Preparatory. We wouldn't be here without them. We want to make sure that you guys are hopefully achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. And actually, I have to go back. We want to talk about the physical side of things, and we almost messed up here. But I do want to say thank you to the sponsors. So thanks so much. But Tyler, why don't you come on back in, because we'd be
I know remiss. I missed last week. I almost missed this week.
You're out of sight, out of mind, right? So you're gone last week. So I apologize for that. But while we're doing this, let's talk about that physical side of things, how important it is, because again, function dictates form.
It absolutely does. So Dennis mentioned posture. We've mentioned posture a few times throughout the show here today. Getting in proper posture is one of the things that we can control, we can master, and that fancy word you guys were throwing around, automaticity. Making it automatic is something that is a need or a necessity for putting. So in our last episode, we talked about putting principles and the importance of using the ground properly. Turning on the right muscles, the large muscles, to stabilize our trunk and then rotate. As you mentioned, putting the club face and the club path in proper position. I would also, kind of throw out the way that we practice is also important. You know what I mean? One of the complaints that we get from juniors so often is how their low back will start to hurt. So I just wanted to address briefly some of the ways that might, be alleviated. So, if you find yourself over a putt, hitting 20, 30, 40, 50 putts in a row without switching it up all that much and just kind of raking one over and giving it another roll. I think it's great to get that into it, but at the same time, randomizing it a little bit, taking a step back, maybe limiting yourself to 3 to 5 putts, shake it out a little bit, and then step back into the exercise would certainly give the back a little bit of a rest. What we see in junior golfers so much is really instability and weak weakness in certain areas that are going to lead to the low back taking the brunt of the stress.
Well, part of that too is then you're in that position for a long period of time. Again, muscles are engaging. Some muscles are engaged that haven't been engaged before. So there are going to be some soreness from that as well. But I think to that point, I mean, I know one of the things that just happened, I'm sure you read, Tiger got his new putter a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
And, to lengthen, to fit his posture a little bit better, maybe eliminate or alleviate some of this pain. But that may be a different situation for Tiger versus a junior golfer developing.
Exactly. I would say that everybody's going to have their own situation whether when it comes to alleviating maybe some of that discomfort in the low back. For Tiger, he chose to stand up just a little taller by lengthening his putter. You could certainly give that a shot, but again, I would work more on your overall function, improving the strength of your abdominals, the hip flexors, making sure that they're lengthened or working properly, and then strengthening the glutes as well. All of that musculature is going to help support the trunk and kind of give you a little bit of break in the low back.
Yeah, well, it's a little different for Tiger. He's on the other end of the spectrum as a junior golfer. He's going into the his mid 40s and maybe 50s soon.
Yep.
So he's going on that end of the spectrum. The juniors are really developing. He didn't really go to this longer putter until obviously his fused back. So there was an injury induced kind of change.
Decision, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not. I think we have to really look at those things for the juniors out there, making sure that you're getting your body prepared to do this kind of rigor of practice.
If you put the time in now, the hope is that these issues won't arise for you, down the road. So again, just working on, keeping the glutes strong, hip flexors stretched out, working on creating a strong midsection, and those muscles are going to help support that putting stroke as you
really
practice.
Making putting sound like an athletic motion. Imagine that. I've been trying to convince people of that for years. Putting's not athletic. We'll go putt for an hour and a half, and see how you feel. So I think, I think people underestimate the physical side in putting.
Yeah, well, I always find it very amazing when we do the SAM Putt Lab, or we're actually doing the Catalyst Balance Lab, and you're doing the assessment part of it, and people don't realize how much they actually move physically to move the putter in such a small stroke. So obviously there's a physical component to this that means something and that really matters. And again, this goes back to the solidness or centeredness of contact and path control. That's all related really back to the physical part of it too.
There's no question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only way that putter is going to move is based on how you move your body. So no way around it.
Yeah, no way around it. No, Tyler, again, thanks for the insight on the physical side.
You got
we
it.
didn't forget about you, I promise.
No hard feelings.
Dennis, again, thanks so much for the insight on the putting side. Dr. Brandt, thanks for being on the show again. Hope you guys gained a lot of information out there about the 5 principles of putting and how it could help you become a better putter and make more putts. Again, in the moment that you need, under pressure, winning that tournament you want to win this weekend. Again, thanks so much to our sponsors, Junior Golf Hub. Get those coaches in your pocket. Download that app. Make sure that you're following schools that you're interested in, and they can follow you back. Get uploaded. Do your self-assessment. There are a lot of things out there you can do to keep coaches, getting notifications on how you're preparing to get to that next level as well. And always, Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. So thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy your journey. Get after it.